All right, we are live. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me adjust this real quick and make sure my settings are good. Perfect. All right. Already got 100 people in here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I am Chris with Monsters Under Our Bed. We cover true crime, mystery to the missing. Today we're going to be covering the Sebastian Rogers case. He went missing in February of this year. It's been a mystery, absolutely almost zero details on his disappearance other than a video that was released early on that they supposedly claimed had no relevance to the case and said it was most likely garbage truck lights. And so I kind of looked into the case when it first came out, and then it kind of, some of these cases sometimes kind of start getting dragged out, and then certain channels come along and it starts to become a drama thing, and I really hate that because I like to stick with the facts and the evidence that we have. So I decided to go back and look at this footage, and I know it's been examined a bunch by different people, and I'm going to shout out a couple of people who've kind of helped me guide the way into what I think is going on in that video. And in my personal opinion, I think I'm about 90% sure exactly where those lights are at. I would say I'm about 80% sure of what's going on. So I cannot wait to show you guys. I got goosebumps when I finally kind of put the pieces together today. And I can't wait to show you. So before we get started though, quickly, if you're new to the channel, we always like to get back by featuring missing people. So today we have, this is Dallas Baker, and I've got a picture, a bigger picture of him right here, just a second. But he went missing on August 19th, so it's been 2 days ago, excuse me. He was last seen at 1:30. This is in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm just going to read the notes here. It says 15-year-old Dallas was last seen by his mother August 19th at 1:30 at his family home in Buckeye, Arizona. Dallas, man, this is scary. I didn't even read the notes. This is kind of the same thing as Sebastian. He is autistic male who has social interaction limitations. Does not look at people when he speaks or spoken to. Wow, that gives me goosebumps. It's kind of just like Sebastian Rogers, same age and everything. Let's see. Dallas is described by his family as a shy person, is aware of stranger danger, and is not likely to interact with the public. If you know his whereabouts, please call 602-876-1011. Again, went missing this Monday, August 19th at 1:30 a.m. Black long sleeve. God, same things too. Black long sleeve shirt, black shorts, purple Crocs. He's 5'7", 150 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. That's Phoenix, Arizona, and here's just a closer picture of Dallas Baker out of Phoenix, Arizona. Autistic, 15 years old. Sound familiar? Wow. So hopefully they get some good news and they find him. All right, let's get going here. Let me pull this up and we'll get to chat for a second. Again, if you're just coming in, please hit that like button. I've got some interesting stuff to show you guys, and I've been doing a lot of research on this, so hopefully it pays off. And we also got a poll going on, and it's kind of one-sided here. We'll think it's a kidnap, family involved, and 30% not sure. We'll keep an eye on that as we go along. Tom coming in with the first donation. I think he ran away from home and it turned into something else as an abduction once he was away from the home. It's possible, there is the supposed dog scent that they captured, but, that's controversial as well because, in the beginning it said that there was no scent, but then, there's been reports, that came out and that he was supposedly tracked, or they tracked his scent to these to this retention pond nearby, and then from there they lost the scent. And then there was actually, they had brought in a bunch of dogs, and there was I think 3 dogs that went to the retention pond, and I think 1 or 2 other dogs had actually gone south. I forget the road right there when we look at the map, but had supposedly tracked a potential scent the other way going south, which once you go south, there's this big wooded area. And if that's true, that'd be just absolutely terrible. But after looking at this, in my opinion, I think there's something shady going on. So let's get into it. Good to see you, Tom. Hope you're doing well, along with all my mods, members, and everybody. I really appreciate you guys coming in. So anybody that's not familiar with this case, I'm just going to play just a quick little recap. It's just 2 minutes about Sebastian Rogers and his timeline. It's not a lot, but he went missing on February 26th or possibly the 25th. He was technically last seen on a Sunday night. They had gotten back from dinner. He's with his mom. Apparently his stepdad was out of town working. And, I'll just play the clip here.
Missing juvenile, 2008 Traffic Court, 1008 Traffic Court, Commissioner. Caller guys this morning, they woke up and their 15-year-old male was not in the bed.
Cleared out, kidnapped.
Yeah, right now, three blonde hair, brushing my bed, but we're going to turn down. I was going to be wearing a black sweatshirt, black sweatpants. Mm-hmm. Juvenile does have a kind of autism. It's the first time it happened. I was going to be in the home before midnight. All the doors are locked at this time.
Just water.
And then from there we went to dinner. Came home. He took out the trash because that's his chore. He takes the can to the end of the driveway. About 9 o'clock, told him to go to bed. He's come out of his room where he was playing. He said, "All right, good night, Mama. Good night, puppies. I love you." And went to bed. He was doing something in his room because about an hour later I heard some noise and I was like, "I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep." And about midnight I got up and I went to bed. And 6 o'clock I went to wake him up for school Monday morning. And that's when he wasn't here.
What was going through your mind at that point? What were the feelings that you were feeling?
To censor myself. Holy freaking crap, this can't be happening. Where is my kid? Choice words were used. Where the F is he? I had looked through the house for him because it was typical for him to get up and come and rummage for snacks and things like that. And he likes to dip behind the walls and watch, And then he comes out after I come back and he likes to scare me. But after I looked, and I mean, mind you, all of this took place in like 1 minute flat. But I didn't see him in his room. I looked all over. I ran through the whole house. I looked out all the doors and windows, and I was like hollering his name. And I picked up the phone and I called my husband, and I said, "I can't find him." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "He's not in this effing house. I can't find our son." And I jumped in my car and I drove around the neighborhood and I drove over by the school, and he's already at this point I was like hysterical and I was crying and I was screaming. And he was like, three-wayed. He three-wayed law enforcement and was telling them our son is missing and we don't know what's going on. And he was like, "Go back to the house. They're on their way." And I drove back to the house. And
okay, so that's just a little recap. I'm sure most of you know this case, but again, she talks about how during that night, between 9 and midnight or something like that. The timeline changes a little bit depending on the interviews, of course. But in a nutshell, basically, she's on the couch for about 3 hours, supposedly reading a book and also speaking with Chris Proudfoot, the stepfather, her husband, who is supposedly working out of town. And then at some point around 10, like I said, the timeline kind of changes depending on interview, but at some point in between that time frame, she hears, in one interview, she says she hears a thud, and then she says, "Bubba, I don't know what you're doing in there, but you better go to sleep." She changes that story up a little bit. But then from there, she puts up the dogs because she's fallen asleep, and then she wakes up in the morning and Sebastian's gone. Then we fast forward a little bit. They had checked the landfills because, as you've seen earlier, the garbage the garbage men, so, there's different garbage trucks and the way they do them. There's some that just have a solo driver, and there's others where they actually have helpers on the side, and they actually roll the garbage cans themselves, and then they have this machine arm on the back, and I'll show it again here. And that's what I believe they have in this neighborhood. So here they had released, but the reason why they ended up checking landfills in the beginning is apparently because when the guy was, rolling the garbage can, he thought it felt heavier than usual. So that led them to check a bunch of landfills, but that nothing ever turned up from that. So then this footage got released. At first it was like a 15-second clip, and then a minute 30-second clip got released a little bit later on by a reporter, Nick Barris. And very interesting. We'll show where this is located. And this footage is actually zoomed in, so we're not actually even looking at the full picture. But this is taken from this home right here, which is just on the corner, and Sebastian's house is kitty corner from that, which we'll look at. But it shows kind of two lights kind of moving around, and then two what appears to be floodlights. And the public always kind of wondered, okay, what's going on. But so I was able to get the original screenshot where it's not zoomed in, which gives a lot more context and really helps out with everything to put this all together. So what we're looking at is the camera is situated here, and it's kind of pointing this way. We can see the Dodge Challenger, right? I want to call it a Charger or Challenger. I always get those two mixed up. But we get the Dodge here, and then, of course, the trucks have, obviously this is from Google Maps. This is 2023 in July, so obviously their vehicles have moved around. But we can see that the black truck is actually situated right here. This white truck is situated here. And actually, I even found some footage from a news clip that actually shows those cars parked exactly how they were that night. So it helps. But that's kind of how they were situated, which this will really help show us exactly where those floodlights are at. These two lights, and then from there we're going to kind of work from the floodlights to these subjects that they call them, that are kind of moving around, and what are they. So now we've kind of figured out what this is. If you didn't notice earlier, I showed this is literally just kind of the outline of the truck. It's actually, this is the window right here, and this is the trim that's being lit up by the floodlight. So now that we know what that is, now we need to figure out what this is. And they said that there were floodlights, and but according to early reports, they made it sound like there were floodlights coming from the homes up here. And in the beginning, it did kind of make sense that it could have been floodlights from one of these two houses right here. This is the house that has the surveillance, where it's kind of going this way. But it just didn't make sense for those floodlights. These houses, it goes up a hill here, and it just didn't really kind of line up with those floodlights, being up here, especially if you look at the camera, look at the angle of the camera. Notice it's not kind of pointing straight. It's pointing down, because clearly that camera's there to focus on their vehicles, right? Because anyone tries to break into their vehicles. So that's clearly what this camera is set up for, is to watch their driveway with all their vehicles there. So keep in mind, this thing is angled down, and this is huge. So it's kind of pointing this way. Now Sebastian's house. Oops, sorry. Let me go back just one. So we have one house here, and then right directly behind it is Sebastian's house. This is going to be very huge for this light video. Now again, originally I kind of thought it was capturing some lights more up in this direction. because it was really hard unless I was literally standing in front of that driveway and having the same perspective of where the direction that camera is going. It's almost impossible to get that perfect lineup using, Google Street. Plus Google Earth, when they drive by, they have their cameras on top of the car. So, they're probably a little bit higher than the view from where the actual surveillance camera is set up. And why that doubled up again. So anyway, so here's the truck. If you didn't know, that's what this is. So let me move this forward, and it's just basically the trim of the truck. And, we can see that there's a floodlight, and that's basically what's going on. Now, notice how everything's kind of shaky. Notice how everything's not sitting still. And so I'll explain why that is as well, why everything's kind of like shaky and not stationary. So if we were to zoom in, if we had like the original footage and we zoomed in, this shouldn't be moving around. So what likely happened, and I'm not sure, maybe it was Nick Barracks, or maybe Nick Barracks asked the residents to, hey, can you send me, a certain clip? And what it is they took their phone, so they had their surveillance footage on the camera, and then what somebody did is they took their phone and they had them zoom in on those lights, and then they're recording, but they're kind of, moving the camera because, that happens. And so that's why this footage, is kind of shaking around, if you didn't know that. So, we're kind of getting a recording of a recording. It'd be nice to have the original footage, but that is what, if you didn't know that, that's why, we're kind of getting the shaky movement going on. Tom says, I think the landfill searches burned up critical time and resources in the first 48 hours. Thanks for all your hard work. We love all your awesome content. Thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate the support. Man, it means the world. That's got to be a lot of resources to check a landfill. Not just one, but multiple landfills, I believe. So, yeah, that is a lot of resources. I don't doubt that at all. And that it could be. If it's something that's not family involved or kidnapping, he just wandered off. Yeah. Casey, good to see you. Made it live. It's been way too long. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. All right. So again, like I said, this is just somebody recording with their camera. Either it was Nick Barracks went over to the home and recorded a little bit, or he just had them, the family that lives there with the surveillance, zoom in, and they're recording it with their phone, and so that's why it's kind of shaky and not stationary. So notice the floodlights kind of go out of view a little bit. And the question is, are those floodlights? And if they are floodlights, where are they coming from? So let's just hear what law enforcement has to say about them. And I promise you we'll get to the good stuff.
I've not cleared anyone, but we have absolutely no evidence to support foul play.
I asked about exclusive home security video obtained from the neighborhood the night Sebastian disappeared. You can see two suspicious light sources, which we've circled here in an area behind the teen's home. Since we first aired the video last month, authorities have said
no evidentiary value?
It is of no evidentiary value.
Can you tell
no evidentiary value.
me what those lights are?
No.
Why?
Because the investigation remains ongoing.
And
no evidentiary value, but he can't explain what's going on in the video.
so it could play a role down the road depending on developments?
We don't know what we don't know. So yes, it could play.
That statement corrects me every time. We don't know what we don't know. That's good to know. So basically contradicts himself, saying it's got no evidentiary value, but could be used down the road. Basically saying that something's up with this footage. That there's more to this footage than they're playing it off as. So again, this is the neighborhood. They claim that a garbage truck, these lights, not the floodlights, but these little orbs, or at least maybe one of the orbs lights, are coming from this garbage truck that's either, at least in one video I saw, he was told that it was the garbage truck coming up this road, which is way up higher. I don't even know how the hell, with the camera pointing down, you're going to capture a garbage truck in a neighborhood. I could kind of see this road, but there's no way this light here is. I mean, where is it? I know it's fall, or not fall. Excuse me. I know it's just
Nothing.
late winter, so obviously, the trees, there weren't leaves and stuff. But so here's their explanation on the footage, and then we're gonna start dissecting it.
And everything is still on the table to be looked at.
We just know he's out there somewhere.
One other question I have is recently Channel 5 in Nashville, they had security footage that showed 2 flashlights the night he disappeared. Is there anything that you think about this video? Or
Sure. So, there's a lot of speculations about that video that are floating on the internet. Okay, and that is exactly what it is. It's speculations. Now, what I can give you an official statement on is TBI Newslink has released a statement from law enforcement, between local law enforcement, state law enforcement, some federal law enforcement, and they have analyzed that video so many times over that.
Really? Well, I'm going to show you. Wait until it's going to be a minute, because I'm going to go through a lot of stuff just to kind of show you what it's not. And like I said, I got a big bombshell and I got goosebumps before I went live, because I'm like, holy shit, everything lines up. But here's some garbage trucks. Notice they got a bunch of lights. A lot of them on the back, they've got a bunch of red lights. Obviously, if they're going to back up, they have, some of those flashing lights, because obviously I don't want to hit somebody. So they got tons of lights on these things. And a lot of times they've got flashing lights, but we don't see that. We see lights, at least, see, these ones are stationary, so they're not doing anything. You would think with multiple different colored lights, we got yellow blinking lights, we got red lights. You would think these lights, or any of these, would almost kind of change color a little bit. I know they're probably far back, and I know they are. You would think they would give off a slightly different color at some point, but they don't. Now, I know some garbage trucks have these lights on the side that are kind of small little floodlights, right? That would usually be set here. These are usually when they have the arm, so this garbage truck is the kind of setup that they have in their neighborhood. So they have a driver, and then, I don't know, 1 to 2 guys who roll the garbage cans, and then they have these mechanical arms on the back, as you can see here. And so they hand toss, not all the time hand toss, but, for the most part, just bring stuff over. So here's just a couple of different examples, as you can see. So this is the light I was talking about. So they do have, one stationary light usually on the side. I was looking at a bunch of different garbage trucks, because I'm trying to look at all angles. But clearly, again, flashing lights, nothing to that effect in these. So moving on. So here is a perspective. Now, this is when I went live the other day, I was trying to give a perspective where I thought the lights were happening. And I thought this subject 2 was kind of crossing the street here. And these lights were maybe coming from floodlights up against this house, because that's what has been talked about many times early on. And that kind of somewhat made sense, because obviously the trees would not have had foliage. And there is two houses in that kind of vicinity that could have floodlights, but even though when I went to Google Maps, I could not see any floodlights, so it was very frustrating. So that was my original thought, was that these lights were coming kind of across. Now keep in mind, again, I'm using the street view, and remember, Google uses cameras that are on top of vehicles, so they're kind of high up. And to recreate this same level of view from the actual surveillance camera would need to be lower. So, so it makes it a little bit harder. But let's listen to. Okay, just before that, some people mentioned, oh, maybe it could be bugs that were captured. Well, this is what it looks like with bugs that are captured on surveillance. There's a pretty distinct difference. We can clearly see, the bug, and I've got a couple different references here, but it's notice how they fly erratically, where the flashlight, two subjects, they're pretty stationary, even though they're moving, they're not erratic as these bugs are. It only looks kind of like erratic because somebody's filming it with a phone, so it kind of moves around. But for the most part, they move in a pretty generic way, unlike bugs. And I have another example, I think, later on. So, if you haven't heard this interview, this is a bombshell interview. I got to shout out JLR. He interviewed Miss Bobby. Miss Bobby lives, so we have Stafford Court, which is the street that Sebastian Rogers lives on. We have Kelly Ave. Kelly Ave's the one that you have to enter to get onto Stafford Court. But if you don't turn down Stafford and go down Kelly Ave, there's kind of a T-junction at the end. She lives somewhere at that T-junction somewhere. Now, she is friends with the home that has the surveillance footage, and she's talked to them. And I believe, I could be misquoted, but I believe she said she's actually seen the footage herself. But she's also had it explained to her by the house owner. And here's what she had to say. It is mind-blowing. And then we'll get to the stuff that I've discovered today.
Used to, a few years back, they would pick up around...
So this little clip, there's just a couple of clips from it. And if you want to see the full interview, it's in the description. Please wait till the end of the live to check it out, but it is in the description. Anything I play from other channels will be in the description. So here is a Hendersonville. I think this is Hendersonville, but this is how they get rid of their trash in their neighborhood. As I said before.
6:30-ish, but then the bus was coming through, and it was making it hard for them to come through with the bus, and all the kids were out, and it was just chaotic.
Thank you.
So they switched it, and now they go down my street about 5:30, between 5:15-ish, 5:20, something like that, every Monday morning. That's going down my hill, though. That's not when they come in and they're going around it. That's when they're coming back down. So, yeah.
I mean, that's an extra, 20 minutes? How long does it take to...
So it's about 20 minutes to clear that little part of the neighborhood out. And I just wanted to reiterate, if you missed what she said, is so basically they used to come at around 6 a.m., which you think would be appropriate time because, you want a garbage man at like 4 or 5 in the morning, especially, at that time, you're sleeping, getting woke up by that. But apparently the school buses come around that time, and so obviously a garbage truck, school bus, with this tiny road, it kind of created problems. So I guess the public then decided to have them come a half hour early. So as they usually get there around 5 a.m. and then leave about 5:30.
The other misconception is a lot of people are saying that they have to hand dump the trash bin in there. They don't. It's a new truck. They have an arm, and it does it for them.
So if you're wondering what she meant by that, and you heard this interview, this is what they're talking about. And this goes along with, so obviously you would typically, have probably the same drivers and guys that do the lifting for the garbage can. So obviously they'll probably get used to, especially if they've been doing it for months, maybe years. They're used to the route and the houses, and so that's why that whole issue with them, a guy coming across the Sebastian Rogers trash can and noticed that when he's moving it to the back of the truck to have it dumped, he noticed that it was much heavier.
So that was another thing where they're having to pick up these big, they're not. They have an arm, they roll it over to the arm, connect it to the arm, and they dump it in. You can hear it. I mean, it's not quiet. It's loud. I mean, you hear the arm doing all that. So by the time they collect the trash coming up the street, though, not going down it.
Yes, Stephanie Walton. He's somebody I was going to shout out because he really just helped me break this whole thing open. Huge shout out to, is it Silver on Scene or Slivers? I thought it was Slivers, but I could be wrong. Yes, I saw a video of him and what he did because he drove out there as well. He really broke this thing and just allowed me to put everything together. So it's kudos to a lot of people, especially Silver or Slivers on Scene.
They're collecting it as they come up. So I guess they're probably in the neighborhood just like around 5, just before 5.
And they're out of there before the buses come.
Yes.
So again, the route that they do is about 5 to 5:30, and they'd probably do, this neighborhood, or this street, this street, and this street, and then probably out of there about 5:20, 5:30, somewhere in that time frame. But the video, remember, this video is supposedly taken at 3:10. Is what I've actually seen a screenshot where it says actually 3:10 on it, or 3:11. So this is hours before the garbage truck would ever come. So I think we can put that to bed. So now what is going on with this footage?
Are there any cars around
So this part of the interview was just mind-blowing.
there? And so going back to the whole light thing, I was told that there was an unidentified car.
So let me just explain real quick. Notice I've got 2 arrows going out. So these are just replicating the surveillance cameras and which way they're pointing. So this home apparently has a camera that's pointed the footage we've seen. And then they apparently have one that's kind of pointed towards the kind of intersection here. So keep that in mind. And then we have Sebastian Rogers' home, and she lives up here somewhere. I don't know exact home here.
Sitting on my street, facing the entrance.
Now, there's a couple times where I think she wants to say Kellen, and sometimes says Stafford, but I think she means Kellen. And I'll kind of get into that in a minute. But she says that there's a car, and it has to be somewhere here, because remember, there's a camera here pointing this way, and so it has to be within this vicinity, right? Because if it was back here, there's no way this camera would be able to capture anything that's up here. So this has to be close, and she says it's close to Stafford.
Somewhere around 3:30 or so, and then the flashlights were actually seen on the neighbor's camera. 2 separate flashlights walking in between the yards, which the trash truck does not do. They don't.
No track. You don't believe that those 3:10 a.m. lights were around 3:10 after 3 a.m. were trash truck lights.
Not only do I not believe it, but the neighbor that has the actual footage swore up and down that they're 2 different circumstances.
And so explain the 2 circumstances is the unidentified car, right, which is at around 3 a.m., and then the whole trash garbage truck coming at 5 a.m., 2 hours later. But there's also another incident, but it's with an Uber driver, which we'll explain here. But that's what she means by the 2 incidences.
There was the car with the lights coming towards the car. The car backed up on Kellen and left. And then about 2-ish hours, hour and a half, hour and 42 something, they're like she said, The time stamp on the video is not working. It is stuck. She said, but you can tell because it's pitch black dark in the middle of the night when the car comes down the street, turns onto Stafford, sits there for about 3 to 5 minutes. When the car comes down the street, turns onto Stafford, sits there for about 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay, so again, when I did my live the other day, remember I kind of thought that the lights were kind of coming a little bit up here.
Around 42 something.
Sorry, I backed
like
that up
she
just
said,
a little too much.
The time stamp on the video is not working. It is stuck. She said, but you can tell because it's pitch black dark in the middle of the night when the car comes down the street, turns onto Stafford, sits there for about 3 to 5 minutes. When the car comes down the street, turns onto Stafford, sits there for about 3 to 5 minutes.
See, I think that's the only confusing part about that. But for the most part, she stays consistent and says it's really on Kelly Ave, backs up and then drives. Maybe it was on Stafford for a minute and then went up to Kelly and then came down. But now we're going to really start to break down the stuff that I discovered today. But again, just one last time, I originally thought, because this is what was going on, is I thought, the floodlights were kind of higher up, but that's not the case. So, the best way to kind of figure this stuff out, you just got to slowly break things down one by one. Okay, we know this truck. Look at the truck and where the hood is at. We put a straight line across over, and look where these alleged floodlights are at. They are at the same level, right? So that means that where those lights are at cannot be any higher than where this truck hood is located. And obviously we have the projected path of subject 2 and 1. And oh my goodness. So again, one last time, I originally thought, because I'd seen a lot of videos back in the day saying this was floodlights from one of these two houses here, and then, these lights, whatever they may be, bugs or something, they're just over here, or, the trash garbage man, but that's not the case. So, again, this morning, I went back, I was dissecting this. I watched Silver's on. I'm pretty sure it's Sliver's on scene. But here's a photo of after Sebastian Rogers went missing, and look right here. So we got Sebastian Rogers' home here, and in the bottom left, and I'll zoom in for those that can't see it. This is the home with the surveillance, and you'll notice all the vehicles are exactly parked on the same night the surveillance footage was taken, parked in the exact same spot, which really, really helps. If you can, we got over 400 people in here. If you haven't, please hit that like button. We're going to drop a bombshell here in just a minute. If you would like to support this channel, it'd really help. Spent a lot of time breaking this down. I promise you, I've got some good stuff for you here in just a minute. But yeah, we've got PayPal, Venmo, different ways, but I do appreciate you guys being here, taking the time to watch the show. So again, here we zoom in, we can see how those vehicles are parked just how it was in the surveillance. We got the black truck, we got that white truck that we kind of see the outline. Notice this truck's not parked too high. So remember how I had the line going across where the floodlights are? Just like this. So notice everything lines up perfect. We've got the Dodge parked here. We got the black truck parked here. We got the white truck here. And we got the other truck here. Exactly how it was. More or less exactly. Maybe they moved a vehicle. But for the most part, they're parked pretty much the same. Looks like they parked slightly different from last time, but it could just be from the way we're looking at it. So again, this is very huge because remember, these lights are at the same level as the hood of this truck, and this is where everything kind of just broke open. So one last time, lines up. And here is somebody driving down the street when it's still fall time. So we can kind of see how the environment was at that time when the surveillance footage was taken. Here we are. Looks like the vehicles have kind of changed since then. I think this guy showed up maybe a month after he disappeared. But there's the Dodge, parked usually in the same spot. The black truck, Jeep's different. And then we have the gray truck. We don't see the white truck, but then we can see, all the trees are still missing the leaves. So yeah, that kind of helps. And so again, I really thought in the beginning that the floodlights were coming from one of these two homes, but that is not the case. And thanks to another YouTuber, Silver's on Scene, he went out there as well, and he noticed another home that had floodlights. And when I saw that video, I was like, holy shit, that perfectly lines up with everything. So I'm going to show it here in just a minute. Silver truck, white truck. Silver truck's here, white truck's here. I mean, they're... yeah. So again, lined up with the hood, right? So this cannot be any higher than the hood of the truck, and I've said that multiple times. So here we are. Now, of course, this truck is not parked where the white truck was at, but it was parked on this lawn about right here, and I'm going to show you right here. So I put a perfect line across to show that this video cannot be any higher than up here, right? And that white truck was probably sitting right here. You could tell it's kind of sitting up on the grass a little bit. Not as high as this black truck here. But look, as we run this line over. Oh, look. What do we got over here? We've got a home right here that lines right up with that. And guess what this home has? So again, one last time, these lights cannot be any higher than the hood of this truck. Same thing. Again, the truck's probably parked about right here. We take a look over at this house because that's where this camera is actually pointing. Now, unfortunately, because when we go to Google, unfortunately, there's only 2 times they've gone down this neighborhood. Once in 2007 where they had a potato camera, so you couldn't see anything. But as we get a little closer, in one view we can see that they have 3 garage doors, and unfortunately these trees are blocking it, but they have 3 floodlights. 1, 2, 3. Unfortunately, we can't see the other 2, but they are there. And now we know that those line up. So what we're actually seeing is the floodlights from that home over there. And you can almost tell that there's a third one maybe trying to go in, or maybe the third one is out, but it is weird because there's an object, which is likely the tree, kind of blocking. So this is the tree, and it's kind of casting some light on it. But this is from that home. And now that we know that, we can start to break down exactly where these subject lights are coming from. And holy hell, I got goosebumps when I started overlaying this. Now again, the biggest issue with this for footage is, like I said earlier, if you missed it, somebody, either as a homeowner or Nick Barracks, they zoomed in on it and then they were filming it with their phone and kind of being shaky. So, you know, we get kind of a shaky thing. But right here, I'm going to show you guys an overlay. Now, keep in mind, as I said again, you know, when Google comes down and drives, they've got a vehicle and then they've got cameras set up on top of the hood. So they're kind of high up. Keep in mind the surveillance camera is a little bit lower. So unfortunately, we can't match up a one-to-one overlay because we would need somebody to kind of go out there and almost kind of get on their knees in this spot here and then, you know, record or take a photo to really line it up perfect. But here we go. And this will make much more sense. This is my first time doing it. So this didn't really kind of, I mean, this kind of added up, but I kind of fixed it and I'm like, oh shit, this makes a lot more sense. So these are the floodlights coming from that home here, not up here. Makes sense. There's a big tree here, so it's probably blocking that one. And I get a better view from this, which again, so even though it shows these subjects that are like low down here, remember if I was on my knees and I took another photo, everything in the neighborhood would be a little bit higher up. So the lights would be more up here. That makes sense. And I actually was able to kind of do that a little bit better. So, all right, this is the one. All right, guys, and I'll zoom it in. So, again, these lights are coming from these floodlights here. I had to play around with this a lot to get this all lined up. So, I know why I tried to show this one. Is some people thought that this subject light was actually coming from this home. Because they could have had a floodlight on the side of their home. And so I wanted to quickly debunk that as well. So what I did is I put a line that I do not change the length. It's a line that's overlaid in there. Now, of course, it's kind of a pain in the ass because, again, this footage moves around. But keep in mind, look at the distance. So if this was a stationary light, the subject one, if this was a stationary light on that home there, now that we know where we're looking at, this light and these floodlights should never, they should have the same distance. Yep. That is where they're coming from. And wait until I show you the next overlay. But I just wanted to prove that this subject is moving. This subject one is not a light from a home. Notice, even though again this guy's shaking his camera around, notice now it's much closer. So this subject one, what it actually does is it actually moves closer to subject two for a little bit. It comes out a little bit and then comes back to where it originally started and then disappears. So that's what's going on. So now we know that is this is stationary, but if these were two stationary lights, they should have the same distance from when we started, and that's not the case. So that is either, if you want to call it a bug, but I'm going to show you an example of another bug That is not a bug because we're zoomed in. There's just no way a bug could create that kind of light source. And as you can see, it starts to move away. And it's gone. So now we know that's something moving. And we already know that subject 2 moves. So now I've seen this come around. Now I can't put too much stock into this. This did come from, I believe, Slivers, but he could have gotten from somewhere else. It's got a timestamp on it. It says 311. Now that could have been added on. We know that the owner said that their timestamps were off. It wasn't working. Now, is it possible maybe that they went back into the footage and then overlaid a timestamp? It's certainly possible. It's easy to do. But now I found a better angle to match up the overlays, and this is where I had the holy shit moment. Nana of 2, it looks like 2 people are walking, in my opinion. I believe it is. And I am going to show you in this next overlay. This is where I'm like, holy shit. We almost got 500 people in here. I really appreciate everybody taking the time. This is where I'm going to really show you guys where these 2 lights are coming from, in my opinion. Of course, I'm going to say in my opinion, but I've been studying this a lot. That doesn't make me an expert, but I've shown how we can kind of deduce where the lights are going to be coming from, because from the previous examples I was talking about, using the line with the truck. And now we're going to listen to her talk about it again with where I think these lights exactly are coming from. And then I'm going to show you the overlay that I was best able to get, and it gave me the chills. I am not kidding. Again, I appreciate everybody coming in. If you guys would like to show some love and support, please hit that like button. There's plenty of ways to donate: Venmo, PayPal, Super Chats. This took a lot to put together, but here we go.
In between the yards, they do whatever they're doing around the car. The car backs up Kellen and leaves from Stafford. I'm sorry, backs up Kellen and leaves. And then 2 or so hours later, as the sun is just beginning to come up, you can see the trash truck. And she said, but the trash truck goes past her driveway. She said, you can see the trash truck and the lights and the back of the truck go past her.
Notice what she said right there. You can see the back of the truck. What we look at earlier, the lights on the back of the truck and how they got all these red lights and flashing lights. Of course, that would not surprise me. Of all the things that stuck out was the back of the truck. And those lights do not change color in any way, so those are not garbage trucks.
Driveway, go up the hill, do its business, turn around, come back down, and then within a few minutes later, the sun is coming up, and then you can see Katie's car leave, Katie's car coming back, and then you can see all the police come in. She said it's very obvious. So I asked her why the police are saying that that's trash truck, and she said, I don't know, I'm baffled.
Yeah.
Because I tell you right now, there are two different circumstances, and that you can tell there are 2 different time frames.
Wow. Because we've heard from Seth Rogers, and Seth is adamant that he was told or he's seen.
That's because LE has told him that.
What's up with that?
Because LE has told him that. Law enforcement has told him that.
Why?
So that's the thing, is why are they being funny about this incident? And wait until what I'm going to show you here in just a minute. I know I keep telling you, wait, but I have to build everything up. I spent a lot of time putting this together. But why are they being so funny about this? And she talks about an unidentified vehicle.
That's the question I asked when I called and left. The only car that was ever seen was the one that was on Kellen, that parked on the corner of Stafford and Kellen for about 3 or 5 minutes, where the flashlights came towards it, backed up and left. And then the trash truck, and then Katie's SUV, and then the police, or then the school bus, and then the police. So there was no other car that ever drove up Stafford.
Was it a car? that the lights
That
went
was
to, or like an SUV or a car? Like what type of vehicle was it?
I don't know. I don't remember. It just the words that where I was told was unidentified car. I don't know if it was an SUV or a car or what. That was just what I was told. It was an unidentified car, and that was another thing is when I asked the lead detective, I said, this car that was on Kellen, he was like, yeah, we already figured that out. That was an Uber, and I was like, no, the Uber was a neighbor on Devon that ordered an Uber about 5:30 to go to the airport. I know that.
So this is why the neighbors and the people that know what's going on here are really frustrated, because there's so many incidents that happened around this garbage truck incident or time frame. Is not only did you have the garbage truck going down doing its thing around 5 to 5:30, is you had an Uber driver about 5:20, 5:30 coming to pick up somebody off Devon, which can be seen, as it's going up Killen Ave by that same camera. And so what she's saying is that the law enforcement is telling them that this suspicious car is this Uber driver, even though she's saying, no, there's two separate incidences. There's one at 3 a.m. Where there's an unidentified car, and then there's the Uber driver hours later where now the light is starting to come up, so you can tell it's they're two different.
But the car setting on why would a car set on Kellen if they were going up the street to get the customer to leave? I mean, you don't.
Okay. All right, so let's break this down, guys. All right, here it is. You ready?
Are located.
Let me grab chat real quick and let me pause it. So I had to work really hard to find the perfect spot to overlay this.
Lights go where the light source for the floodlights are located, or we can start to figure out why the subject lights go off and on.
Okay, here it is. All right, so I'm going to pause it here. This is what I've been talking about, guys, so get ready. Let me just grab Super Chats real quick, and we're going to play this here. And I've still got more that I'm working on, so I'll probably have a short video come out tomorrow explaining it a little bit more. We got Cat in the Hat. Good to see you. Thank you so much for the $10 super sticker. That is so awesome. It really helps this channel out because we do more than just cover true crime. We also go out and search for the missing, and I would love to get back out there and start searching again. Tom coming in with another donation. Thanks for all your hard work. Money is a little tight at the moment. I understand it, buddy. But I believe in your cause and intentions. Keep fighting the good fight. Love how you are breaking this down. Thanks, Tom. I hope you're still here because this is where we're going to blow the lid off it. Okay. Like I said, one more time. The surveillance camera is pointing down a little bit. And the Google guy has got the camera up high. So it's hard to really exactly line this up. But I was able to do it the best I can. And this is where I had the holy shit moment. And I wish if I could go out there and get on my knees about right here and just go a little bit lower, I could line everything up. And holy shit. But here it is. And I'll also zoom it in as well. For those that are on the phone. But keep in mind, one last time, the surveillance video, remember, somebody's recorded it on the phone, so it's shaking around. So it's kind of tough to have it like perfectly lined up. But watch where these subjects come out of. Especially watch where subject 2 comes out of. So here it would be lined up right here. Sebastian Rogers' home right here. And look where subject 2 comes out of. And then disappears right here. Subject 1's right here. Guess where subject 2 is going to pop out? Takes a minute. Because they're probably going down in this ditch here. Hiding. Is that a cabana? Is it called a cabana? And then did I slow this one down? And then here comes subject 2. Subject 2 continues on. Again, you know, these lights are bouncing around because remember, the guy's got this phone, so, you know, really it would be stationary, and the subject 2 is really just kind of going in a straight line, but for some reason. And here, it notice there's a couple trees, and it kind of goes in and out, and then it disappears, which I think it disappears right behind this home. And I was able to zoom it in and almost get it even a little bit better. But again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a video where I'm going to fix this. So I'm going to have to fix every time this guy's, whoever recorded it with their phone, I'm going to try to fix it so it's all lined up just right. Because again, as you can see, it's bouncing around because someone's recorded on their phone, which I'm blessed to at least have footage to work with. But watch where subject 2 comes out of. Remember, here's the edge of the first home, and it's going to come out right here. Boom. Comes right out beside that home. And I'm going to also, like I said, I'm going to have a video where I'm going to check the distance. I'm going to do that line thing again with these subjects and see if I can figure some kind of math equations, well, not math equations, but use some basic math and measurements. That would be the best description. But notice the light disappeared here. There's this ditch that goes along back and kind of goes behind this. Is it called a cabana? And so that person would have probably had to go down in that ditch, come back out. So that's probably why it's taking him a little bit. Plus, I think I have it slowed down just a tad. And then it's going to pop out. Oh my gosh. Right after the cabana. Now, it looks like he's moving back and forth, but remember, the guy's moving his phone. So I really think he's not really moving back. He's maybe stationary for a minute and then continues moving forward. He's probably going through these trees, and then he disappears. If I were to have it get a little bit better shot and lower shot, everything, number 1 pops out. So here's an overview, a top view of what's going on.
The flashlights are coming from 2 different directions in between the yards.
Notice how she says the lights are even coming. Gazebo. What was I saying? Cabana. Gazebo. I'm dyslexic. So keep that in mind. Gazebo. Cabana. It's a cabana somewhere. A gazebo. There we go. I'm sure you guys getting a laugh out of that. Notice how she says the lights are coming from 2 different directions. And it is. I'm going to show you one more time. And you can see, and I tried to line it up just a little bit better, but like I said, I've got more work to do. But I think this light pops out beside this house here. And then what do we know? We have a car that's supposedly parked close to the intersection that backs up. And what are the odds? We have a light coming out the back of this house that has the floodlights. Sebastian's home's right here. These lights meet up, and then they go to the car. The car is gone. This car is unidentified. This happens the same night Sebastian Rogers goes home. Let me know what you think in the chat. To me, now whether the family is involved, I'm not going to go that far, but I'll be honest. Especially with Proudfoot, their stories have not been, consistent, not at all. But
do whatever they're doing around the car backs up Kellen and leaves from Stafford. I'm sorry, backs up Kellen and leaves. And then 2 or so hours later.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it spends a lot of work. Enough with the Yeah. Anyway, so again, like I said, it looks like subject 1 is like lower, but of course, again, like I said, you'd have to be kind of on your knees. So really, subject 1 would be kind of more up here as he pops out. But again, it's so interesting that when it lines up at certain times, when it is properly lined up, when they disappear, it's right where this house is at. And when that light comes out, again, I think this is zoomed in a little bit. But if you just came in, this is Floodlights. And here is when that light comes out. And it pops out right behind that home. And then it disappears. We have this ditch that this person's probably going down. The gazebo. Oh, here's me just kind of replaying it a couple times. Sorry, that gave me goosebumps. But anybody that thinks this is bugs,
was asked to look into the case of Sebastian Rogers, a missing 15-year-old.
these are orbs. You can see bugs. Anyway, this is something there's so much more I had to do. I just didn't have enough time to put everything together in this live. But, you know, I wanted to try to look at every different angle. Flashlights, bugs, everything. Because that's what we do on this channel. You know, we look at every different aspect, but we try to stick with the facts and evidence that we have. But what are the odds? Again, before we go to this last part here, what are the odds? I'm going to play this one last time. This is happening. I believe it's happening at 3 a.m. And just like I said, the fact that subject 2 pops out right behind that house. There's a car waiting over here, unidentified. And this is on the same night he went missing. I think they know, criminal man. I'm not going to lie. I think they know. That's why they're being so funky about it. I could turn it in. I've still got a few things I've got to do. But I guess it wouldn't hurt to turn it in. But yeah, I'm going to, because like I said, it's shaky. What I'm going to do after the lives, I'm going to, every time it's shit, I'm going to adjust it. So everything's cohesive. So it looks better.
To look into the case of Sebastian Rogers.
But I am also looking at bugs at night, flashlights. I'm trying to figure out. To me, I almost wonder if it's a cell phone, and not a flashlight. And these could be 2 cell phones, or a cell phone from a flashlight. So look at the flashlights on the phone, and look at subjects. And here's a flashlight, which it does look like that, but the flashlight also has the beam, you know, whereas the cell phone, it's pretty much the same. So notice it's pretty consistent, you know, with the cell phone. So I'm still trying to kind of figure out, you know, which one it could be. You know, like I said, I'm trying to look at it at all angles. But in my opinion, I think I've figured out where it's at, and it's not just me doing all the work. Of course, there's, you know, slivers. There's plenty of people that need the credit as well. But we're going to talk about one last thing here, so I can check chat and everything. But I'm so glad I went back at that footage, because it really bugged me. I'd watched a certain channel where he said, oh, this is a garbage truck, because he spoke to Proudfoot, and he did like a debunk video, you know. And this guy, he's kind of known for sticking with facts. Honestly, I hate the guy, but he does use to stick with facts. But he had spoke with Proudfoot, and he was told, yeah, it's a garbage truck that's running along up in this neighborhood back here. And I'm like, how? That doesn't make sense. And takes to slivers, pointing out that these had floodlights. and like I said, you guys have seen it. It's just using one piece of the puzzle. Whatever you got in the frame, you use one piece of the evidence or whatever's in the frame, and connect it to the next piece, and then from there you connect, and yeah. So let me get to chat. While I'm reading chat, this is Lore Lodge, and I just want to play the last bit of his part 3 video because he's a big YouTuber. He's kind of like Annalise. Oh gosh, there's a bunch of them, and I can't think of their names, but he's done an amazing job, and he's compiled everything together, and he was so disturbed on what he found that he's actually turning stuff into the TBI and whoever that'll accept what he's found. And he's convinced that Chris Proudfoot was not at work that night. Now, I haven't gotten that far into the research on that, but woof. But let's listen to what he has to say while I read chat. And I'm curious to see what you guys think. I'm going to go through chat as well.
If you haven't seen the previous 2 videos in this series, the short version is that Sebastian disappeared back on February 26th of this year. According to the story told by his mother and his stepfather, she woke up to get him ready for school on a Monday, and he wasn't in bed, he wasn't in the kitchen, he was nowhere in the house, and there were no footprints, no scent leading away. The police have been totally unable to figure out where Sebastian went after he left the house that evening. His stepfather and his mom say that they believe that he simply left the house of his own volition. He didn't take his phone, he didn't take his switch, he didn't even take his shoes, and they don't know why, and they don't know where he might be, and they're very distraught about the fact that he has not yet been found. As we discussed in part 2 of this series, however,
I think so too.
Parents can't be trusted to tell the truth about basically anything. Chris Proudfoot has lied about everything from whether or not he took a polygraph test to how many times he beat his son, oddly admitting that he did in fact beat his son. We also know that Chris and Katie, whose last name is Proudfoot, left their home in the middle of the search before even a month had passed from Sebastian's disappearance. And when they left their home, they said that Chris had to go back to work at a job that in that very same interview in which he said he was going back to work, well, he told Nancy Grace, the interviewer, that he didn't know if he still had that job. I'm not going to go through the entire thing that we went through in part 2, obviously, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you watch it before watching.
So, again, this is, I forget his name, shame on me, the guy from Lore Lodge, amazing guy. Again, he did a 3-part video. I have the link to one of the videos. It might even be his channel. Anything that I showed from another channel is in the link in the description. So, again, the interview with the neighbor from JLR, that's in the description as well. Shout out to him. That was an amazing interview. I think that interview is huge, in my opinion. But let me grab chat real quick and we'll listen to Lore Lodge. Just his last little bit. It's his conclusion, and it just, to me, it's something that I've never heard a big YouTuber do before. I mean, maybe it's been done before, but I was like, damn. Skills of Justice, thank you for all you do. Thank you. Oh, thank you for all you do twice. Thank you so much, Skills of Justice. That means the world. Again, spent hours. I spent 3 days kind of, not straight, but off and on working on this between different projects. But, yeah, it was nice to kind of figure out where this is coming from. And now that we know, I still got a little bit more to put together, and I'll probably have a video tomorrow to really fully put everything, hopefully as much as I can together. June. Are there even lightning bugs this month he's missing? That's a good question. I'm not from that area. I don't think they would show up that far away. I'm trying to find videos that would show them, but I don't think that it's possible they would show up, because remember, we're zooming in. If there was bugs close to the camera, that's why I showed this orb, because supposedly that's a bug, this orb thing that's flying around. That's a bug that's just being lit up, flying around. I don't know. Or it could be a ghost. Who knows? But you can see other bugs where they're flying around. The other thing is they're erratic. Bugs are typically erratic. It sometimes looks like the subjects in the video are erratic, but that's only because somebody's recording the footage with a phone, and they're not holding it straight, so it's kind of wobbling. So that's what I'm going to try to fix when I overlay it. Laura says, in my opinion, I think the Proudfoots are involved. I would lean, well, I want to be careful. I would lean towards my first, the one I have on top. I think I agree with most people in the poll, which has 450 votes. He was kidnapped, family involved. 25% not sure. Only 5% think he was kidnapped by strangers, and only 7% think he ran away. So I think we'll end that. Great poll, though. That was interesting. But let's listen to Lord Lodge. I'll get to some more quotes, chat here.
But what I want to say here is that after finishing the research for it, after shooting the video, I was extremely suspicious of Chris Proudfoot. And I think the way that I would describe this is that most of my suspicions centered around one particular aspect of the story.
Yeah.
Towards the end of our second video on the Sebastian Rogers disappearance, the one that came out a week before this one, I said that there was a bunch of stuff that I felt I couldn't yet talk about, that I had come across, that I had noted, and that I had begun investigating, but wasn't quite at the point where I could present.
Now, I've listened to all of them, and it's been a minute since I've really listened to the first two, because they've came out. I think it took them 2 or 3 weeks to put all of them out, maybe 2 weeks. They're really amazing. But yeah, at the end of part 2, he's like, man, I think I figured something out, but I can't quite share it. I've kind of got a theory, conclusion, and in my opinion, and he basically kind of hints at it here, in just a second, that he believes that Chris Proudfoot was not at work. And, with a YouTuber like that, he's got a team that helps him. So, they get FOIA requests, whatever. And I'm sure he got some documents that really raised some red flags.
And feel like I had given you the full story. And when I said that, what I had in mind were accusations from some people against other people involved in the story. I was thinking about, different... I am assuming those people are not familiar with our channel. That said, I understand where they're coming from, and I was being legitimate when I said that I was holding off on it because I wanted to compile as much as I could first so that I would be confident about what I was suggesting. I am now finally mostly confident in my hypothesis. So without anything further, here's my hypothesis. Call me crazy, but consider the following scenario. Chris Proudfoot married Nina Gomez for the benefits and had no intention of living with her. At some point during their marriage, possibly even prior to it, he began dating Katie Proudfoot. Chris was upset when Nina got pregnant because that meant a commitment beyond a legal contract. When she decided to have the baby anyway, Chris decided he wanted to keep his daughter but not his wife and made arrangements to separate them. He had Nina move to Tennessee in order to both isolate her from her family.
One thing I've noticed, and I hate to talk bad about people, especially I don't know if they're actually guilty or not, but man, he's an asshole, I'm sorry, but Chris, he's clearly an asshole, and he's not made for social media. I'll tell you that right now. He needs a PR guy, anyway, but yeah, he seems like a very spiteful person, that, this is my opinion, allegedly, but he comes off very spiteful, that'll do some really shady stuff, to get back at you.
Family and surround her with his, and to ensure that the courts would be more favorable to him as a local. He then waited until an opportunity arose to separate Nina from Faith and filed the TPO, assuming that the justice system would side with him, but he miscalculated and lost the case. Then, at some point during the last few years, something occurred with Sebastian that made Chris distrust him enough not to want him around Faith, and maybe interfered with his attempts to get custody. And that is where I get stuck, and I'm not sure how to progress without further answers from law enforcement or more research into the interviews given by the Proudfoots. But I find it extremely unlikely that Sebastian left the house on his own, barefoot, into the cold, based on the fact that he notably hated walking barefoot outdoors, and dogs were unable to track a scent just hours later. If he didn't leave barefoot, then he may have left wearing shoes, but that doesn't explain the decision to leave into the cold without his phone or his Nintendo Switch. And there's also the fact that not a single camera saw him. That would suggest to me that he left in a car, but he certainly didn't drive, which means someone must have driven him.
And one other thing, too, is, and I forget his name. Somebody knows in the chat, please let me know so I can, but this guy from Lord Lodge, he also has a brother that has autism, so he can kind of relate a little bit. I know there's, every case is going to be different. I had a cousin who had autism, probably different from Sebastian Rogers, but you know, I can kind of relate a little bit to those situations. Not with, you know, just the autism part, I mean.
Very few people that Sebastian would trust enough to get into a car with, and even fewer people who had access to the home. Sebastian had no contact with anyone but approved adults, so we're talking about somebody who must be very close to him, and likely very trusted by Katie and Chris. So aside from Seth, his father, it seems like the only people who would have access to Sebastian at this time would be his own family. And after looking through everything, while I'm not going to say that we can rule out Seth being abusive in the past, I think we can rule Seth out as a suspect in this case. Is it possible that someone, be it Katie, Kathy, Melissa, or any other member of the Proudfoot clan, spirited Sebastian away in the middle of the night to hide him somewhere? Or maybe Sebastian never made it home that night at all, since the last time anyone other than family saw him was as they were leaving dinner Sunday night. I doubt Katie wanted her son dead, and I don't think that she would stand by Chris if Sebastian was.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think there's a good possibility he is alive. That's just my opinion, though. But I think that this was a spiteful thing, plan to take him away. Because, yeah, Seth Rogers, I don't know when he was supposed to actually get him, but, yeah, he was, there was plans for him to get custody. And looking at the history, which Lord Lodge goes through, so if you haven't seen it, again, links in the description. But he goes through them. And, yeah, there's a lot of shady stuff, especially, I think, in part 2 and 3 as well. All 3 parts are amazing, of course. But, yeah, there's some really shady history. But I'm going to play this last little bit here, and we'll finish up here in just a second. We got 600 people in here. That's awesome. I'll show that one last time. Anybody came in and missed what I showed, I'll play it one last time at the end here.
Which means that kidnapping by family is, so far as I'm concerned, the most likely scenario. But why?
Yeah.
Chris had gotten what he wanted with Sebastian moving out of the house, so there was no reason to make him disappear on that front. Having your one child go missing while you're actively fighting for custody of the other probably doesn't help your case, so I doubt this was plan A, so to speak. The only thing that I could imagine would warrant this would be Sebastian throwing a wrench into the custody battle. And this would probably be related to the abuse by Chris. From there, I can see 2 main possibilities. The first is that should Sebastian testify in this custody battle, or should he be allowed to give a statement in this custody battle, well, he's autistic. His testimony would be very honest.
Yeah. Now, I'm not an expert in autism. Like I said, I had a cousin that had autism, and they have a hard time lying. You know, they can kind of lie, but you know when they're lying. And you can really, it's not hard to kind of confront them and get them to tell, the truth. At least, with my cousin. Again, I'm sure every, case could be different, but that's what I got from my experience growing up with my cousin. He was 20 years older than me, but, back in the day, they didn't, autism wasn't even a thing yet. So, we still use the R word, obviously not in a derogatory way. It just, that's, mentally, but yeah. But yeah, he had, there's no way he could lie, and come up with lies that they,
Very honest testimony from Sebastian would be very bad for Chris. Second is that Chris misrepresented his most recent encounter with CPS after he beat Sebastian with a belt for at least the second time, and the case was more serious than he let on. Now remember, Chris said in his interviews that this CPS worker came to the house, took Sebastian outside, and then told Sebastian, hey, buddy, when you're being punished, you shouldn't tell anyone. You're going to get your dad in trouble. Don't do that. Don't report when you're being punished. A lot of you rightfully noted that the way that Chris described Sebastian's conversation with that caseworker did not sound like any caseworker you'd ever heard of, and I have to agree. So, just really quick, let's go back and take a look at what Chris said his encounter with that CPS worker was like when Sebastian was 15, okay? She's like, oh, hey, I'm already, don't. She's like, don't tell me anything, but I'm going to tell you what I know happened. And I said, okay. She goes, boom, boom, boom. She told me exactly what happened. I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, oh my God. I said, yes, ma'am. This is how it's been. Sebastian thought by telling on me, making it sound like I was so horrible, that I was going to get in trouble over something stupid. It was like, no, Sebastian, you got punished, man. You got punished. And he was like, but, and I was like, you got punished. And the lady took him outside. She goes, Sebastian, just because you get in trouble and you get punished, you need to understand when you go and say things about people and you lie and you fabricate things and you make it sound worse than what it is, sir, you can get in trouble for that.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. So let's just go on to this last little piece. I'll recap just this tiny little bit, and then we'll get out of here. But this is just blows my mind.
Friendly to parents the second time they're called to that house. In case it wasn't clear, we're into the pure speculation part. So, not buying that one. We already know that Chris has lied about CPS. Why would he not lie about what happened when CPS came to the door? The only way the report from that CPS visit gets out there is if the police charge the Proudfoots and they use it as evidence in a trial, or if a CPS caseworker working out of that office were to leak it. So yeah, I would not be shocked at all if Chris lied about that encounter. It just would not surprise me. But the question then is, would missing child look better than abused child to a custody court? But just to reiterate, bring things back, reset, make sure we're all on the same page about where we are, the suggestion was that maybe that CPS visit was a little bit more serious than he let on, and he did not want the New Mexico courts finding out about it. Would CPS or the custody court be less concerned about a missing child than an abused child? I frankly do not know, and it's not a question I ever thought I'd have to ask. But also, how would that work once the case is over? I mean, does he miraculously appear back in Hendersonville and, tragically, due to the trauma and his being autistic, he goes nonverbal and refuses to talk about anything that happened, and then they just kind of send him on his way? Now, of course, I have to remind everybody that this is a hypothetical scenario that I feel is possible based on the evidence that I have accumulated and presented. My sole interest is to explain my findings in the hopes that they may lead to new avenues in the search for Sebastian Rogers. I am in no way asserting that the hypothetical scenario I described today is to be understood as an allegation of any kind, nor am I making the claim that any party is responsible for Sebastian's disappearance. By the time this video goes live, all of the research that I have compiled will have already been sent to the FBI and the TBI.
That is crazy. Again, I've never heard of that. Maybe that's happened before, but content creators like Annalise and the others, in that kind of genre, maybe they do that without saying that to their viewers. I'm sure maybe that's happened, but for him to come out and say that in this video, like I said, and it's clear he has a team. They got documents, FOIA requests, and he is adamant that Chris Proudfoot was not at work. That's an avenue I haven't really researched because I kind of slipped away from the case, unfortunately, because there's so many cases to cover. But man, that is wild that he would mention that. That means he's found some very concerning stuff. So one last time, holy cow, we could keep getting more people in here. I'm just going to recap one last thing, probably 10 minutes and we're done here. I do appreciate everybody, but just anybody that came in late and was wondering what all the hype is. Let me just show you one last time here. And I'm going to have another video coming out. It's just going to be a short video, not a live. But is this the best one? Yeah. So, again, the whole live kind of just goes over how I've come to this point. So, if you missed the live, please go check out the beginning. But I finally figured out, and I can't take all the credit. This goes to a lot of people, including Slivers on the scene. He's been out there. Finally figured out where these floodlights are at. I am 99% sure these floodlights are right here. If you want to learn more about why I know or how I think that, you can check out the live earlier. But this is where they're at. Subject 1 would be located about here. Keep in mind, the Google image I have that's overlaid is from the Google driver who's got a camera on top of his car. So the camera's kind of high up. And so to match up that overlay perfect, we would need somebody to go out there kind of on their knees, a lower shot. So really subject 1 would be kind of up about right here, if that makes sense. And then I kind of explain why these bounce around, and that's because somebody's recording it with a phone. But watch where subject 2 pops out of. He pops out right behind this house. This is Sebastian's home here, and the light source pops out right behind there. It disappears. There's a gazebo here. There's also a ditch, so this person's probably going down in a ditch, crossing over. You can see subject 1. He kind of popped out. Notice he'll disappear. He probably disappears because he's going behind this house right here. So he's gone. Now we have subject 2 who's going to pop out right past the gazebo. Take a minute here. This might have been slowed down footage. And there it is. And then eventually, subject 2 will make his way. Again, he's not bouncing up around. It's because of the footage, as I explained earlier. But he will continue over, and he'll disappear right where subject 1 disappeared. And it's interestingly enough, there's a home right there, and I think he bounced. Those two figures came from, or at least one of the figures came from behind the home. And just one last time, look at where that light source pops out perfectly behind that home. And here's just a top-down view.
Going around the flashlights are coming from 2 different directions in between the yards. They do whatever.
So that's Sebastian's home there. Subject 2 pops out behind this home here. We have subject 1 that kind of peers out behind this home here, and then kind of retreats back as subject 2 comes along. And we learn from the neighbor that there's a suspicious car because the house that has the surveillance camera not only has a camera pointing this way, but it also has one pointing this way towards the intersection here of Stafford and Killen. And apparently this car kind of sits there for 3 minutes, backs up a little bit, and then drives off. And this is all happening while the lights, and what do you know? And we know that the car couldn't be much further up the street because obviously the surveillance camera can only capture so much. So if it's in the frame, that means it's got to be somewhere in this area, if that makes sense. And which direction are these lights going towards? The unidentified vehicle. And this all happens the same night that he disappears. I wish they would release the unidentified vehicle. Maybe it's too dark and you really can't make anything out. But, of course, they're being very fishy about this whole surveillance footage and trying to play it off as something else that it's not.
The car backs up Kellen and leaves from Stafford. I'm sorry, backs up Kellen and leaves. And then 2 or so hours later.
To me, it's almost like somebody's coming to escort Sebastian. So this could be like, whoever, some adult family member, or if kidnappers, but I think kidnappers would go. Or maybe that it is 2 kidnappers, and maybe this is kidnapper 1, kidnapper 2, and maybe he has Sebastian Rogers, and we just can't tell, and he's carrying Sebastian Rogers out. That could be another scenario. But, yeah. So, again, I'm going to put out a video tomorrow where I'm going to fix this together, and I've got a few more things planned for it as well that'll add a little bit more stuff to it. So, let me get to chat for the last 5 minutes before we head out. A huge shout out to my mods. I really appreciate you guys' hard work. Let me know what you think. I'll try to get to a few of them. Yeah. Thanks to that guy. I want to call him Slivers. Maybe it's Silvers, but yeah, he really helped me kind of. I knew that those lights were not up in the other area. So, thank you so much, Louise. I also, for those that are into paranormal stuff, I just started a second channel. And I upload once a week. I just put a video out literally today. The link is in the description and sometimes probably in the chat if you want to check that channel out, if you're into the paranormal stuff. A lot of fun. That's where the lights are from, in my opinion. Yeah, that's it. No, we don't. And law enforcement, as we heard from the neighbor, she says that they're trying to play that unidentified car off as the Uber driver that shows up 2 hours later. But obviously the neighbors know better because they've seen the footage and know that those are 2 different incidences. So why are they, being weird with that? Yeah, Sebastian Strong. Thanks, Chris, for all you do off and online. You do great. Thank you so much, 2 cents. So much. Heather, thank you for your research. Milzak, Chris, thank you for sticking with the facts. Your overlay is amazing. Yeah, I'm going to have a better one tomorrow. I'm going to try to do it as best I can to really kind of, yeah, I'm really excited for that one. Don says, I'm going to give you some stuff in the email. Okay, I will look forward to it, Don. I appreciate it. So it is Silver's on the scene. Okay. Yeah, if you'd like to check out the channel, you definitely. If you, by chance, donate to PayPal or Venmo, let me know in the chat so I could shout you out before we go. But I do appreciate all the support. Again, we do cover true crime, and we also go out searching for the missing. We've been searching for Aidan Clune because the summer got really hot. I ended up getting dehydrated. So I kind of had to take kind of a month off, more or less. But we want to get back out there. There is footage of a car headlights. Ask Jay for Jay is for justice. She has. Oh, so is there another video? Boy, I would go. Hey, I would go ham if there's another video. If you guys know if there's another video, I will gladly take it and see what I can do with it. BHB. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, this channel, if you're new to this channel, we don't do the drama stuff here. We stick to the facts. We still speculate, but holy shit, man. Some of these channels, I mean, they just I don't like it. I feel like they abuse the name Sebastian Rogers, and that's not going towards anybody. I know we just said BHB. I'm not saying that specifically to her, but you know, there are channels that use Sebastian Rogers, and then they don't talk about Sebastian Rogers at all. It has nothing to do about him. And it makes YouTube crime channels look bad, and I hate that. Absolutely hate it. Aquarian, good to see you. My theory is Rogers met someone online, ran away with that person. That could be. Maybe that's what we saw. Definitely possible, for sure. Ren said, I watched Aidan Clune case. I know we found his shoes, and then, of course, the heat was so bad that haven't been able to really go out there lately. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Buddha. I wish I'd shout everybody out, but I'll be here for another half hour. But I really appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Thank you, Christina. Emails, it's also in the chat. You can also find it in the description as well. I am, so. But with that, huge shout out to my wonderful mods. You guys are amazing. I think I got everybody. Just double checking here. Okay, I think I did. Awesome. So with that, again, one more video. It'll be a short video, maybe like 6 to 8 minute video of something like this, but I'm going to add a little bit more. So please check it out. It'll come out tomorrow. So with that, I am going to head out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday, Thursday, wherever you're at. And we will see you guys probably live Friday, but I'll have some videos out tomorrow as well. So look forward to that. And we're going to go ahead and play our outro. Love you guys. Be safe.